I'm Stephanie Kahn. Welcome to Friend of a Friend. I have a lot of creative friends who make art, who make music, who make beautiful lives. But today's guest isn't just a friend, she's also family. She's a visual artist and a curator, and she also plays bass and sings in the band Ethel and the Mermen. It's Tanya Read.
Ain't no spring chicken anymore. Oh, finger licking. You want some more? Yeah. Got the rhythm in me. Learn the hard way. Got me thinking, gonna do my way. Come around here, stand all night.
That's music by Ethel and the Mermen with vocals and bass by today's guest, Tanya Read. I first met Tanya at our family's annual Boxing Day gathering. She'd met my cousin Scott at the Ontario College of Art. Well, specifically, they met in Italy, where some of OCAD's students were on a year of study abroad. Tanya was cool and sweet and interesting, and we liked her right away. But I didn't understand until later just how accomplished and productive she is. Since graduating from OCAD in 1995, she's been active in the Toronto art community, not just creating her own critically acclaimed work, but also co-founding an artist collective, running a storefront gallery with her partner in life and art, my late cousin Scott Carruthers, and serving on the board of a small 8mm film festival, 8Fest. She also plays bass and sings in the band Ethel and the Mermen, which we just heard a bit of. Here's our conversation. Tanya, welcome to Friend of a Friend.
Hi, Stephanie. How are you?
Not too bad. How are you doing?
Good, good.
Hanging out with the dog in the basement.
Yeah, she's got a bone, so you might hear some like crunching noises. Not
Episode.
me.
It's not you, right? You're not chewing on your bones? That'd be real punk rock. I'm like chewing on bones. So it's episode 9, and you're my second visual artist / musician, but my first family member.
Thanks.
Yeah.
I'm honored.
So you play music too, and I mentioned Ethel and the Mermen. We heard a little. And is there a connection on some level for you between your music or musical activities and your visual art? I mean, I don't know, philosophically, thematically, or just even practically, or
No. They're actually very separate. Funny, people have asked me that before. Oh, why don't you incorporate your artwork into your music somehow? Or, is there a connection? But, I find them very different in the way that for me, art is very meditative and kind of an alone kind of experience where, you're in your head a lot, and then you're producing things that you will hopefully ultimately share with people, and then people can experience what you've made and created. But with music, it's much more immediate, and it's often, and with me, in my case, playing with a band, it's a group collaborative experience, and and you have an audience, hopefully, and you get that more immediate response. Where if I'm making a drawing or a sculpture or something, I'm putting it up in a space and walking away, and then people are coming when I'm not there and experiencing and responding, and I may get some feedback from friends and people that tell me they've seen the work, or someone writing about it, a critique of it or something. But that experience, for the most part, is happening when I'm not there, with people individually interacting with what I've made. But yeah, so I see it very different. Really, yeah.
Maybe complimentary in a way. I mean, I don't know if you wish for instant feedback from your art. Imagine boo or yeah, I don't know. I mean,
well, you get that if you make a film, I guess,
Yeah.
if you're in the audience, or, nowadays online, you can have things posted and you can be,
So you can have a comment section.
comments. And so
Yeah.
that's a little more immediate response. But I really love the collaborative nature of music too, and kind of bouncing ideas off of each other. And when Scott was alive and in the band with me, he played drums and I was the bass player. That was really great for us as a couple, not only both being artists, responding to each other and critiquing each other's artwork. In the band, I'd come up with a little riff on my bass, and Scott would be like, oh, actually, maybe if you did this, or this kind of harmony would fit with what you're singing, and he would sing the harmony, so it was a different kind of collaboration. And then with our guitar player, he would add his element too. And I like that kind of collaboration and bouncing ideas off of each other.
When I met you, you'd finished school, you were already immersed in this artist life, for lack of a better word for it. And I mentioned you were part of that cohort from OCAD that went to Italy, I guess Florence, right? And I was just wondering like how that experience might have been useful for you artistically.
Yeah, well, at the Ontario College of Art, they had always, for many years, had an off-campus program. And in the years before I was there, they ran it in New York. And then the New York studio closed, but they had a studio in Florence, Italy. At that time, I was in my early 20s, and I hadn't really traveled a lot on my own or gone abroad for any extended time. And I just wanted to basically get out of Toronto. And I mean, I would have gone, my first choice was New York, but that wasn't an option. So it just seemed like a really good opportunity and, to be able to go to school. And I remember our teacher who went with us, they send one teacher to kind of be the guide or the teacher program for the year. And she was in charge of interviewing all the students. And I think she had some mandate that she had to pick, people from the drawing and painting department and maybe some people from the experimental art department, which I was more in the experimental art area. So I remember going into the interview to talk to her. Her name's Ray Johnson, a well-known painter, a Canadian painter. And, she asked me, well, why do you want to go? Why should I pick you? And I said, well, I just really need to get out of Toronto. I got to get out of here.
It sounds funny, but I mean, you were questing for a new stimulus or whatever. That's what she could write down. I mean, it's true though. It's like, you kind of stagnate, seeing the same things. And
yeah, I wanted some new experiences. I wanted to see the world a bit. And, I wasn't particularly interested in the Renaissance and all of that, but just sort of having an adventure was really exciting, and being on my own and meeting new people and traveling. I did travel around Europe while I was there. It was a good place to sort of travel from. It was really great that way. And then as I was there, I really did learn to appreciate the culture and the history and the architecture and the art that was there. And I learned a lot. So I think it really expanded my knowledge of art. And
I just saw recently the documentary they made about some of the art collectives in Toronto, Collective City, it's called. I'm going to link to it in the show notes. And in it, you talked about how you learned to self-curate, like to put shows on, basically. Can you talk a little about that?
Yeah, exactly. In the documentary, you will see that all of that started in the students that were there in Italy. Because of our teacher, Ray Johnson. She was in some art collectives, I guess, but the main one was Chromosome in the 80s in Toronto. I mean, certainly collectives existed before them, but they kind of were like the real little bit more attitude, kind of punk, do it yourself, and mostly painters. And they would just put on their own shows. And I think they had a show in Germany as well. And so she kind of inspired us and talked about that time in her life and working with these other artists and how they used to do it and put together things, and it'd be a big event and party and everything. And it just, she said, well, you guys can do this, don't just wait for someone to hand you something. And then she got us organized to have a show in Rome at the Canadian Cultural Center, because she had a connection there and they were showing her work while she was in Italy. So she convinced them to allow her students to have a show. And then she just said, here you go, just do it yourself now and put it together. And she guided us through how to put a catalog together, art statement and curatorial statement, whatever. So it was great. And so that show happened, and it was like a big opening, and people from, the mayor, I think, of Rome was there, and local celebrity was there, and, we all dressed up, and it was very
Yeah.
fun.
In the
And
video, you can see your amazing outfit and hair
yeah,
with
yeah, yeah.
it. That was probably as important, if not, more in some ways. I mean, th those are skills that would help you get grants, right? That would help you get people to eyes on your show.
It gave us some experience
Mm.
right out, as
Yeah.
soon as we got out of school, we could have a CV that
Hmm.
said we had a show in Rome at the Canadian
Hmm.
Cultural Center. So that actually, was good, I guess, career-wise, but we still had to work pretty hard when we got out of school to figure out what do you do next. You don't have that cocoon of the institution. And so certainly one route that people often go is to approach a commercial gallery, or they get further education and become, involved in teaching art as a professor or whatever. But for us, I guess, me and Scott particularly, and probably because Scott really had a punk rock attitude, that was sort of his ethos, and
Yeah. Why
I
join an established gallery when you
yeah,
could
yeah, he
do
didn't
your
like that
own?
idea
Yeah.
at all.
Yeah.
And I didn't really either, I just thought, well, I'm not going to wait around, I just want to, there's lots of available places to rent at that time in the 90s in
Mm.
Toronto. There was abandoned warehouses, or not abandoned, but they were kind of run down, or, office spaces, things like that, that landlords would be happy to rent to you for a month if you were going to fix up the place and paint the walls, and so you'd have an agreement where, okay, we'll pay you this much for a month, and we'll paint the walls, and we'll have a show, and we'll take care of everything, and then it was sort
Mhm.
of a nicer space after we had finished with
Yeah.
it. And it helped out the buildings were trying to rent the space. And that was happening all over
Mhm.
Toronto in the 90s. A lot of art groups were doing that.
I went
Um,
to some of those shows that your Impure Collective did down on Queen East or something. There was
yeah,
one.
there's
I
one
remember going
out.
to that one.
Yeah, I'm not sure which one you went to, but
Yeah.
we had a couple out that way.
Hmm.
And one was in a pink space. Like all the walls were pink because I think it was like a bridal shop or something before, and it was a huge space. We thought, how in the world are we gonna paint this huge space? Like all the white walls. So we just decided, let's just keep it pink. We came up with a theme that could suit that. So we thought, okay, the Emperor's New Clothes, the flesh, that's sort of like the pink
Ah.
walls. And then all of our work we could sort of make around that theme of the story. And so that worked out quite well. And the pink actually didn't look too bad with all the artwork on it.
It sounds like you're working independently, but when you have a collective, there can be, I guess, various levels of collaboration still. Like you decided on a theme and then you did your own thing
Sure.
within.
Yeah, I guess I've always had some level of collaboration in my practice through working in a collective, and then later on with my partner Scott, even though we had our very separate art practices, like we wouldn't collaborate on an art piece together, but we moved into a storefront, and we lived in that on Queen Street.
I was going to ask about that next. Yeah.
Yeah, so
A
we lived
fly
there.
gallery.
That's right. Well, we turned it into Fly Gallery, which basically we were living in a storefront, and there was a window facing Queen Street. And we thought, oh, well, this is a nice opportunity. It's a good location. And we just finished with the collective that had ended. And we thought, well, yeah, we really enjoy that process of working with artists and showing artwork and seeing what's out there, seeing what people
Hmm.
are doing. And we have a lot of friends who are artists, so it'd be great to show their work. And we just use the window, the storefront window, as a gallery space. And then behind the wall, we were living in the storefronts. And there was a few galleries like that in Toronto that existed at the time. Our friend Rupin had one called Natural Light Window, which was a little further east. And so he'd been doing that for a while. And so he was
Hmm.
kind of an inspiration for what we ended up doing. And we ran the Fly Gallery for, oh gosh, 12 or 14 years, maybe. It was a long time.
as you mentioned, it wasn't just your, or sometimes it was your art, sometimes it was your friends or other
Yeah,
people's, or
yeah. I
yeah. So
mean,
you were curating.
yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. And in the beginning it was, I think the first show was a good friend of ours, Alison McCall, who's a painter. We'd known her from art school, from the College of Art, and she was in the collective with us in the Impura Collective, and we really liked her work, and she was a good friend, and we knew she'd be easy to work with. So she was the first show, and then we kind of went through our friends, and then people started seeing the space or the window, and there's a little bit of a buzz that started happening about the gallery, and so
Mhm.
we would get approached by people, and we had our phone number on the front door, so so people would just call and say, "Can we get a show?" And sometimes we would say yes, sometimes we say no, but we wouldn't charge for the space. That was very much Scott was really adamant about that. I mean, myself too, but his philosophy was it should be free, an open space. People can do whatever they want, and we won't take any money. Like if you sell work, you get all the money from selling it out of the
So
window.
nice.
Yeah, he also sort of thought, well, if we do that, then they can't make any demands on us, because they're
Right.
because it's just, well, here you go, it's free, you do what you want, and so that made it kind of easier in that regard.
You created a character called Mr. Nobody. It says that you created it in 1998, which seems like a long time ago now, and that he's been basically either at the center or near the center of your art practice ever since. And he shows up in paintings and drawings and videos and even a t-shirt that I have. And so, like, who is Mr. Nobody?
Well, yeah, that's a good question. I had been doing painting before that, and I loved the old cartoons, like Betty Boop and the old Mickey Mouse cartoons, Walt Disney stuff from 20s, 30s
Mm.
era, and that black and white kind of stuff, and the animation. And I just thought I wanted to try doing some drawings in that style.
Mhm.
And so I started thinking of a character. What would that look like? And what kind of character would that be? And so I just came up with this drawing that was like a reference to those early cartoons. And I call it a he, but I don't really have any distinguishing gender features on the character. It's a cartoon animal,
Yeah.
but I thought calling it a Mister was interesting. Being a woman, create a character that is identified as a male, but it's not really. So it looks like kind of, some people say like Crazy Cat or Mickey Mouse-esque, black and white.
He's
And
cute.
yeah, thanks.
It's real.
And I wanted it also to be very simple, that kind of iconic image that anyone could draw. You don't have to be an artist. It's basically the character is made up of circles. So, and I thought that was really interesting, that idea that anyone could take it and use it to, if they want to,
Mm.
do their own card, or like I remember one time some family bought a bunch of the t-shirts I had made with the character, and they did a Mr. Nobody birthday party, and they made their own
Oh.
drawings and with Mr. Nobody on the cake, and like, and they sent me all these pictures. It was pretty, and they all bought the t-shirts and wore them at the party. It was like for a little 4-year-old birthday party, I think, little boy. So that
This
was really
could be a thing
cool.
for you. Like you could have a kids theme birthday party package of
Yeah, I
t-shirts,
guess.
a little stencil for the cake to spray
Yeah.
on it. That's very cute, though.
Yeah, but I wanted the character to be sort of an everyman, like this
Hmm.
down and out kind of Charlie Chaplin-esque,
Mm.
and silent. I did a bunch of animations that, um,
Mm.
the first one I did was it was Super 8 animation of the character kind of just standing still on a platform, which is like a staircase, and it's like an escalator kind of going up and up and up, and he's just being carried along to the top, and then he slowly falls down, like he just gets to the
Hmm.
precipice and just drifts down and falls flat on his face. But it's a very slow kind of soft fall, and then it loops. very like Sisyphus, this endless kind of
Yeah.
existential. It's sort of like life, where you
Mhm.
just sort of on this treadmill a bit. Like I like that sort of absurdity and that kind of
Mhm.
idea of this endless loop, and the character's just caught in this kind of thing. And
The idea, Mr. Nobody, the name Mr. Nobody, I love wearing the shirt because it has him on the front and the back. It says nobody. And I
yeah.
feel like it's such a contrast to this kind of like look at me self-promotion Instagram age that we're in. I know
Well,
you created him before, but it's
yeah,
perfect.
well, oh, well, thank you. Yeah, that was the idea actually, because I thought, well, people wear t-shirts, with logos or identifying them with
Hmm.
kind of clan, we've all got the Lacoste or we've all got the Benetton or whatever it is, I
Yeah.
mean, I'm dating myself. Those are really old,
Yeah.
whatever,
Yeah.
Nike, whatever
Yeah.
it is.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, you're all wearing the same thing, so you're really not like an individual. And so why not like just like nobody? We're all like just you're nothing, like
Yeah.
what do you mean you're an individual? You're like part of this kind of tribe. So I like that kind of dichotomy, and the face looks like a kind of a mask or something. It's
Hmm.
very like expressionless and like a stamp, on your chest.
The simplest things are the hardest, aren't they, in some ways? Like you say, simple to draw, but to come up with something that could serve you to express so many different things, like that's
I
the
like that.
work.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, I think that's what artists um, hopefully strive to do, is create things that can be somewhat ambiguous. If you could explain everything, well, I just write an essay, or because I don't even know what things mean when I'm making them exactly. And I really love that there can be several layers. People bring that to the work.
Yeah, they
Uh,
can enter in and engage with it.
yeah, you're
Mhm.
not pointing them in one direction. And I think the best art, in my opinion, does that really well. And something like Guernica, or the Picasso piece, is specifically about an event or whatever, but people can look at it and maybe not know anything about that event in history, and see the anguish, or think of their mother that died, or like people can bring their own
Mhm.
history to it, and then hopefully read about the history of why the painting was made and the
Mhm.
process, whatever.
I wanted this conversation to be about you and your work, but also that we can't escape talking about Scott, right?
For sure,
Who,
because we both
who,
have the Scott connection.
yeah, and
Yeah.
you collaborated on the flag gallery and the band, and you even put together excuses, a kind of a collection of different things. Having a partner that's a creative partner on so many levels and a life partner, it's not something a lot of people get to have.
And it's funny, I now that he's gone, I realize that so much that I was very lucky to have that. I mean, at the time, and being with him, and it just felt very natural.
Mm,
I thought, oh, this is just the way it is. You find someone and you share things, and you work together, and you both have very similar overlapping interests and creative interests. Um, but now I realize how special that was. And I am also fortunate to have friends that are in relationships like that. Maybe within a creative community that I travel in, that is more common than in the sort of other worlds out there. But
mm,
yeah, it was very special. And I was with him for 30 years. And, I met him in Italy when I was 22. And so I really became who I am because of him and with him. We both grew together. And
mm.
so that was great. I mean, it was so wonderful to have someone to share creative ideas with, and to help each other. It was almost like you left the school environment where you had your peers and teachers helping you with your work and critiquing, and then I had a person right there that we both could do
Mhm.
that for each other.
You've described a little, even like in the musical context, but in the art context too, it must have been great to have someone, not to tell you how to do it, but to maybe say, oh, more of this, or I don't know, like what kind of, but
Exactly.
to
Yeah.
have like a peer reviewer.
And also to help motivate each other. I mean, Scott was very driven. I don't think he needed anyone to motivate him.
I was going to mention that. It seemed like, yeah, compulsive, like a lot of musicians too. Like that would be, he'd get home and that's what he'd do, right?
Oh, he was such a hard worker and so driven, and just so that was really motivating and inspiring for me. I can't say what he got out of my contribution to his creativity, but he would certainly ask my opinion about what he was doing, and, would listen to me and I would listen to him. And we both, I think, had a lot of knowledge and experience as artists over the years, and a real knowledge of each other's work, that we were able to see when something was maybe you're not working hard enough on that, or actually, it's not really the direction that you really should go, or whatever. So, yeah, I miss him a lot.
Oh, yeah. You always seem, the two of you, like so happy, but just with each other, but also like in your life, like you seem to be living. I mean, I know you have day jobs, but they didn't seem to get in the way, right, of what you wanted to do.
Not really, but I mean, certainly, it was harder to.
Yeah, it's tiring.
To have a day job and then come home and try to think about making art. And I think, I mean, we never had kids, we never had a family, so that was a choice that enabled us to devote more time to our creativity and our projects we wanted to do, and that was fine. I mean, that was good. Our lives would have been very different, I imagine, if we'd had children and we had to make certain choices and commitments. And that was fine. It was what we wanted to do, and it enabled us to get a lot done and creatively, and produce a lot of stuff. I was listening to, there's a podcast Anderson Cooper put together about grief. One of the guests he had on was Laurie Anderson, and she talked a lot about her partnership with Lou Reed, and that really resonated with me, thinking about Scott, and she just talked about that kind of shared experience and appreciation of each other's craft.
Well,
I don't know if that's a good ending.
That feels like a good place to end. Tanya, it's been so wonderful to chat with you, and I hope to see you in person this summer. I don't know, at a show, at a pool party, or hey, if all else fails, next Boxing Day, maybe.
Well, I hope before then. Yeah, thank you for arranging this, and what you're doing is really great. And
thank you for your willingness to reflect and open up. And everyone's been great, but it's continually thankful. So see you again soon, I hope.
Thanks. Okay, well, take care.
Bye.
Okay, bye-bye.
That was my conversation with Tanya Read. You can find out more about her and her work at her website, tanyaread.com, and that's READ, like a book. I'll put a link to that in the show notes. I'll also put some images of Tanya and her work, and a link to the short documentary about the Toronto Independent Artist Collectives. Thanks to Ali Burcock for his piano music that I use as a theme at the top of the show, and as always, thank you to all of you for listening. I really appreciate it, and I hope you'll forward the show to your friends or colleagues if you think they might be interested. I'm going to finish now with more music from Ethel and the Mermen. Bye for now.
Can't stand up on my feet in the city, looking all around now here, kitty. I can't believe the things I see. Say, what do you expect me to believe? Where are you going? Now can I come too? So why are you treating me so cruel? Say, I found a reason, and the reason is you. Got a feeling inside, I don't know what to do. I know you ain't got much to say, but I thought that you should know. Sometimes I don't, and sometimes I will, sometimes I won't. I can't stand kind of life with no love. Sometimes I think I've had enough.